In patch 317 Siege of the Atlas, we got not one new boss, but two. Well, technically four, but two of them are sub-bosses, so they don't really count. And these two bosses are the Eater of Worlds and the Searing Exarch. Overall, I like a lot of the themes that were used for both the Searing Exarch and the Eater of Worlds. The Searing Exarch combines fire, meteor, flames, explosions, and if you count the Black Star, also the cold icy void of space itself. On the other hand, the Eater of Worlds, and its sub-boss the Infinite Hunger, bring all the things that you expect from tentacle monsters. Bottomless swamps that drag you down into nothingness. And of course, monsters that just want to eat your soul. And every other part of you, of course, because why leave a body behind? That's good meat and it would go to waste. Now personally, I found the telegraphs for both of these fights to be quite easy. In fact, even when I messed up and didn't read the telegraph correctly, that wasn't too big of a deal. I had enough defenses that I'd rarely die to my mistakes. Except in the case of the Infinite Hunger, where it seemed easier to just die than actually do the stupid swamp maze that's constantly slowing you down and shredding your armor and all that. But not everyone has felt the same. In fact, I've gotten several questions about how the Eater of Worlds works in particular. So today, I'm going to be talking about the Eater of Worlds, his mechanics, his damage types, and some of the things that you might want going into the fight. And if you find this boss guide helpful, then be sure to leave a like on the video. If you want to see more boss guides, like this one, say for the Searing Exarch, then let me know down in the comments below. Then if you want, you can check out my merch store down in the description below, where I have several different things, including an Eater of Worlds themed shirt with the Envoy's haunting words, or just some awesome tentacles. You can get it either with or without the text. So if that interests you, be sure to check down below. And if you generally like Path of Exile or Lost Ark content, be sure to sub to the channel and ring the bell to be notified whenever I upload. But for now, what are some important things that you should bring into the Eater of Worlds fight? Number 1, shock immunity is very helpful. Many of his abilities deal lightning damage, and some of them have guaranteed shock effect. So if you don't want to get shocked and then killed by the next hit, being immune to shock or reducing the effect of shock on you is very helpful. Similarly, something like a Topaz Flask to cause you to take less lightning damage, or simply maximum lightning resistance will be very helpful modifiers in this fight, as all of his abilities are either lightning or physical. When the fight starts, he will begin with a very simple tentacle strike. 3 tentacles come out of the ground, and they attempt to slam you. This doesn't hit very hard. In fact, you can kind of just stand in it unless you're incredibly squishy. I wouldn't worry too much about this ability unless the boss has damage modifiers. This is all he will do for the first part of a fight. Once you DPS him down, then he'll start using other abilities. The first one I want to talk about is his gigantic tentacle slam. You'll want to have voice lines on so you can hear him say writhing mass. He will summon a series of tentacles that form a wall that slam horizontally across the arena. This is quite easy to run out of. As long as you see the direction they're coming from, going the opposite way should easily take you out of a path. And it's not necessarily death, but this is one of his harder hitting abilities. So I strongly advise not trying to tank it and instead moving out. Next up, I want to talk about his Flicker Teleport Slam. He will say Hunger, and he'll get this kind of weird watery blue bubble around him. This means he is charging up his laser, and he is about to explode. This does massive damage in a very localized area around him in melee range. If you're a ranged build, take a few steps back, maybe use your movement skill. If you're a melee build, stop DPSing and get out of there because you are in danger. When he says the word succumb, he is firing his laser. This is a Divine Ire style ability that hits quite hard, but is a localized frontal beam, so as you see him charge up and kind of get that green glowy aura around him, then just move to the side and his beam will fly harmlessly past. This is another ability that's very easy to dodge because of how localized the damage is. You might be noticing a pattern. With the exception of Writhing Mass, almost all of his abilities are incredibly easy to avoid. They all fire damage in a very localized area. Now, there are 2 other very important mechanics. First of all, he'll periodically summon spheres around the arena. I believe this is tied to the word perish, but don't quote me on that. These spheres will attempt to move closer to you and drown you. You don't want to stand in the sphere, and you don't want to stand in the debuff puddle they leave behind. But if you look at the sphere, i.e. physically face your character towards them, then they will shrink away and slink back into the shadows like the miserable spheres that they are. Can't trust spheres, they're cowards. Squares are far more reliable. I guess you should have probably used those. And then finally, the mechanic that I think gets the most people killed, and the thing that most people struggle with. He starts it by saying Inescapable Doom, but let's be honest, you're not missing this one even if you tried. A bunch of purple orbs appear around the room, and he starts channeling a gigantic death beam. This death beam hits for massive amounts of damage, so I very much don't advise tanking it unless you have 90% max res and additional damage reductions. The way that you end this phase is you stand in the purple spheres. You need to stand in them for a little bit. You'll see a pop and the ring around the sphere will disappear, at which point it is charged. If you need a little hint, the Maven will say, charge the spheres, Exile. Once you've charged them all, she will use their power, she will blast the Eater of Worlds and interrupt his ability. It should be noted that the longer he channels, the larger the area of his beam grows. It does do some damage. If you have very little to no recovery, it can kill you, but as long as you have a life flask, you should be totally fine. Speed and precision are your best friends here. You don't want to run around like a headless chicken, and it can become a little bit problematic if those watery spheres overlap with the purple orbs you're trying to charge. If that's the case, unfortunately, you're going to have to stand in it, you're going to get the drowning debuff, maybe pop a life flask, and tank the damage, because otherwise, you are going to die. Remember, you can always do the invitation white if you're not confident in your DPS, and if you do it white, his abilities honestly don't hit that hard. In fact, you should be able to survive a mistake, regardless of what hits you, as long as it's not the giant explosion from failing to charge the orbs. In terms of difficulty, I would say that Eater of Worlds is actually mechanically very easy. This is because most of his stuff is very forgiving. Even the Shaper will kill you if you eat triple balls, and that's a very commonly used mechanic. On the other hand, if your build has solid defenses, the only thing that's likely to kill you on Eater of Worlds is failing 2 mechanics in a row or getting crit. Again, aside of the giant death blast that I've mentioned several times. So while I'd say this is a fairly easy boss, hopefully going into it with a better understanding of how the mechanics work will help you when you start adding mods. Because as you add extra damage mods, or as you add extra health, it does get far more dangerous and you are far more likely to fail the encounter. And that's the trick with these invitations. They seem easy the first time you do them because the first time you did them white. As you add mods, they get exponentially more dangerous. Imagine, if he has crit and you have minus max res, all of a sudden his abilities are hitting exponentially harder, and unless you're crit immune, you're just 1 crit away from being completely annihilated. But what has your experience been with the Eater of Worlds? Did you kill him no problem the first time? Did you struggle a bit and then persevere on your second or third attempt? Or have you still not managed to get to him at all? And what other PoE bosses would you like to see guides for at some point in the future? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching. And again, a special thanks to my patrons and YouTube channel members. If you want to support me, you can do so by clicking the links down in the description below or on screen right now. You can also support by making purchases through my Nexus page. Or if you just want to chill and hang out, be sure to join the Discord. Again, links for everything are down in the description below. Thank you, and have a great day.